Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are in Sydney in the Grey Space office.
We are.
Jordan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
What are we chatting about today?
Today we're talking about automations, a bit of a buzzword at the moment. I think it's super important that we just cover all the basic stuff and then we'll dive a bit deeper in the next episode. What's your thoughts on automations and have you used it before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're incredible.
Yep.
Incredible use in your business to save you a whole chunk of time, improve efficiencies, allow business owners, or not even business owners, but employees to just reinvest their time in more effective, potentially revenue generating areas that they're probably better at anyway, but they're spending a lot of time in these areas. Also helps to reduce errors. So I'm a big fan of automation.
Agreed. The biggest thing is saving time.
Yeah.
And like you said, whether you're a business owner or you're working for someone, if you can implement some of this stuff that we're going to go through today and make a couple of tweaks with some of the software, we'll talk about the software too, it can save you so much time.
Yeah. What do you think is the main kind of misconception around automation at the moment?
That it's going to get rid of jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know what? I don't think it's the case at the moment, but who knows? With this whole AI thing, I believe that you're just gonna have to be able to utilize these tools and just shift, because like there's always been shifts with people in certain jobs and things become obsolete and you just have to pivot and be able to pivot, which we spoke about in that last episode. I don't think it's going to get rid of jobs, no. I think it's just going to help people do better work, be more efficient, and businesses will become more profitable.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there's probably an element of both. I think there's certain, like when we moved from people running factories, looking like a bread factory, for example, people going in there and like pouring everything in and then packaging the bread at the end. Then obviously that person was removed because there was a robot or there was a system or a machine that could do it. So I think there will be an element of certain jobs potentially could be shifted. I think responsibilities will shift. I think that if you want to ensure that your role or your job is more secure, then understand automations and how it might change your position.
Yep.
Because then you can lean into it. Potentially you can bring cases forward to your manager or your leader of how you can improve your role, which will ultimately improve the business as well.
For sure.
So we've kind of touched on, I guess, like the core benefit or the return on investment of automation, which is saving time. What else do we want to explore here?
I want to give an example first, just so our listeners can visualize, or in case they haven't seen this stuff before. But one of the first automations that we did was trying to automate the client onboarding process. So for us at Grey Space, and it's forever evolving, and there's sometimes things get missed, but the crux of it is during onboarding, if a client would accept a proposal, and then traditionally you'd send out an email requesting documents, and then you'd go back and forth. You haven't filled this out. We're still waiting for a trust deed or a company constitution, whatever it is. The first one that we did was the automating that process. So how we did that, there's a software we use called Content Snare, and Emma, our practice manager, just fills out the email address and they get an automated sequence of questions that they need to answer and documents they need to upload, and it automates the reminders. So Emma doesn't have to go in there, check, okay, that's been entered properly. If not, you just press no, hasn't, and it knocks it back and it goes back to the client. It automates the follow-ups, so you don't have to manually say, hey, just a reminder. Like, it's all done automatically. And I think that alone has saved, God knows, maybe 10 hours a week. And then on top of that, there's a correspondence tool we use where it's all automated. So based off the business name, it knows who to send the email to. Whereas traditionally, you'd have to open the mail, read who it goes to. Hey, do I need to send this to someone? And now you don't have to do that. Yep. It's just all done automatically.
And I guess in Emma's situation as well, all of those sort of like manual follow-ups would be such a mundane part of her role normally, which could lead to burnout, but it also could just lead to like job dissatisfaction.
Yep.
And so then it allows her, instead of going through these onboarding documents, manually scanning, manually emailing clients, it allows her to shift her attention onto other things and probably more engaging for her as well.
So much more engaging. She has so much more time now to work on more value-added tasks.
Out of curiosity, how long did it take to set up those systems?
Maybe a month or so.
Okay. full-time work?
No, not full-time work, but yeah, still doing your standard stuff. But I'd say you could probably knock it out in a couple of days. But I would say a month, maybe 3 weeks for that specific piece of software, because it links to everything as well. Like it talks all about other software, and we'll touch on how it does that a bit later. But I just think it's a no-brainer. If you can sit back and just look at like all of your software that you're using and like how can I make things smoother and make them all talk to each other, because that's what we're doing essentially. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. That's great. Is there any other areas of your business that you've implemented automated sequences? Yep. We've used it in, like, if a proposal gets accepted, it automatically pins Slack, which will then let Emma know that we need to send out that onboarding process that we spoke about. That hasn't been fully automated yet because we have a few different onboarding processes dependent on the service that we're offering. So that's a work in progress. Maybe you can automate that. I'm not sure. But I would say that's the main one. It's just trying to cut out all the admin-y type stuff, because it's takes up so much time, and it's not a revenue generating task. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us in particular, we I guess the first kind of process that we automated was when someone books in a discovery call, that piece of information they have to put in, their name, their phone number, what they're inquiring about, a little bit of information. That information obviously gets sent through to Monday, which is our CRM program that we use. So then I can jump into like a lead pipeline and I can see, who sent in an inquiry, what they're inquiring about, when that inquiry came through. And then I can track when my last date of contact was with that person. That same piece of information also goes through our Slack. So then the rest of the team goes, oh, okay, cool. Zara's got a discovery call with XYZ business this week. This is what they're interested in the accelerator program, or they're interested in CRM development, or whatever it might be. And then I can automate depending again on when that conversation happens, and I send them a proposal. All of that information kind of gets shared. So everyone, it's kind of a one place that everyone can see all of the information. Yep. Which is really handy. There's still a lot of automations that I want to set up in the business, I think, that I know will improve. What are you thinking? A lot. I mean, the one that I was kind of just riffing on with you about was through the Inflection program. When somebody joins our free community, I get notified, and normally I would send that person a direct message and just say, hey, welcome to the community. So great to have you here. Would love to learn more about your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I loop in you guys or one of you guys, depending on who would be most relevant based on what they say they want to work on. But I think that there's an element of that could be automated as well, so that if I don't get into the Inflection community for 2 days and someone joins on a Monday, they're not getting a message on a Thursday, for example. They're getting that welcome message the moment they come into the community. Yeah. So you're there straight away. I wonder if you could make it so, depending on what industry they're in or whatever they're lacking in their business, if you can point it to me, yourself or Dan, Owen, that'd be cool. Yeah, absolutely. And then I think also our proposal software that we use, I think there's a bit of automation that we could do with that as well. Obviously, that we do have if it hasn't been opened or it hasn't been signed in a period of time, it kind of notifies the client what you were talking about. So it kind of takes that task off myself or whoever's managing that client. But I think that there's probably an element that when it's signed, rather than the information just coming through to my email address, it could also update that client's profile in Monday, send it through to a different Monday board, which is our active clients, and just kind of filter all of that information into our email marketing software as well. Yeah, cool. Is it super time consuming, like that, using that example? Would that take you a lot of time to set that up? To set up that automation? Yeah. I feel like it'd just be playing around, because I'd be working with automating programs probably that I haven't played around that much with before. But using things like Zapier and make it much easier. Yep. Obviously, a piece of information goes from one software into this little house, which is Zapier or Make, and then it shoots out that piece of information into another kind of software. Yep. I find that as time's going on, it's becoming a lot more difficult to use that software, like Zapier and Make, because there's so many more things you can do now. Whereas I remember a year or two ago when we first started dabbing into it, it was very simple. It's like this talks to that and that's going to happen, done. But now, it seems like it's becoming a lot more difficult. And that's why we're seeing the emergence of these businesses that are just doing that stuff. They're just doing automations.
Yeah, it's just such a huge opportunity for businesses, for those businesses to be kind of capitalizing on that as well.
Yeah.
But there's also an element of, there's the reality that I probably haven't set it up yet is because I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit of a time suck.
Yep.
So I think there's huge opportunity in those businesses that are opening up, like you just said.
Yeah, for sure. And as a starting point, you want to focus on the 20% of tasks that are going to give you the 80% of results. I think that's a big thing too. You don't just want to automate something for the sake of doing it. Like if it's going to save you a second or two, big whoop. And if we can do something like that example that I gave, that whole onboarding process, like that would be saving Emma maybe an hour per customer, per client. So
huge.
That's where you want to get started at that point where you can save the most amount of time.
Yep. Yeah. And if you can use it as, I guess, to create like a single source of truth, like a place that everyone can go to, your entire team can have access to, because there's going to be software that you have access to in a leadership or a management role, but your team doesn't have access to because they don't need it. But if there's a way that the relevant information that needs to be shared can be shared in a position where everyone can see it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some essential business automations. And I think the ones that we're going to run through, we'll touch on all the different segments of a business, but these ones are relatively easy to set up and are probably a really good starting point if you haven't already started in the automation space. And a lot of the ones that we're going to talk about now, you don't need to set Zapier up or Make. A lot of the software itself does it. But we'll run through them. So in the marketing space, we've got email sequences and lead nurturing. Do you want to give us a rundown about what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, email sequences is massive, and it's such at a very top line level. It essentially helps to differentiate people based on behaviors and interactions that they have with your business, and then they kind of fall into these different segments, and then those segments get sent a different piece of information. So, for example, if you are working with someone in a particular location, let's just choose a plumber. So potentially you've done like a tap, you've redesigned a bathroom, for example. Okay, pretty good job, actually. Nice. Okay, so you've engaged with that person. Maybe it's been a couple of days or a week, that particular job. You kind of keep all of that information, whether you're using like Simpro or ServiceMate or whatever it might be, you keep all of that information in there, but then you kind of want to have that going into a CRM or an email marketing database. And then you build out these profiles based on people and the interactions that they've had, what services they've used. So then next time there might be, maybe there's a new tap that goes out, maybe someone's had a water filter installed. If it's an under sink water filter, it probably needs to be replaced every 12 to 18 months. So then you kind of could set up an automation that you don't have to manage, but can automatically contact that customer. Hey, your water filter needs filling up. Needs replacing. These are the reasons why. And then you kind of reiterate the reasons why they made the decision to buy that water filter. Maybe it takes an hour, not even. I mean, we replaced our water filter at home. It was a bit of a shit show. It was like water everywhere under the sink, but it was pretty easy.
Yeah. You did it yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just got under there and just have to unclip it. The unclipping part was a little bit hard.
Yeah.
Had a towel under there because that's what the little YouTube video said, was to have a towel. Did I anticipate how much water was going to come out? Nope. Towel, baking tray, another towel. But it worked. Swapped it over.
There you go.
So if you need
no need for an email automation.
No need for an email automation. And if you need a water filter, it's my new side hustle.
Yeah, there you go. So send your emails to Zara at Inflection. But that's a really good example when something is on like a recurring, like that water filter example, where it's cool. Install date is, say it's today. All you have to do is set the email flow up, or automation, whatever you want to call it. And then every 12 months, it'll send out those emails. Whereas traditionally,
you would have to manually go through your contact list.
Yeah. Well, contact list is probably written down somewhere in like a diary or it's on Excel. It's like, okay, cool. I think they're probably due in a few weeks. But if you have 200 people you're doing this for, nightmare.
Yeah. How long does that take you to contact everyone, find their mobile number? Maybe that mobile number's changed. Maybe you wrote their email address down, but there was a spelling error in that email address, or there was a typo. And instead of emailing Jordan Kidis, you're emailing Jordan Lidis. doesn't exist.
Jordan Lettuce. Another nickname. It's true. And it's one thing to, you'll send out one email, but you can anticipate that email sequence could be 4 emails.
Yes.
Like doing that stuff manually would take you so long.
Yeah, and you can use it to kind of upsell people into your business as well. Obviously, like looking at products, for example, maybe someone's bought a particular skincare product from you. I feel like skincare is usually the e-com kind of space that I go to, because it's really easy to kind of talk about and provide examples for. But you might buy a particular skincare product, maybe buy some like a vitamin C serum. There's probably a chance that they might want something else as a result because they care about these certain factors and what vitamin C does to their skin. So it's much easier to say, hey, well, you've purchased this before. There's probably a pretty high percentage. And I think this kind of goes into what we were talking about the other day, about AI agents and how they can help to like boost business and sales, is that it identifies if you have your kind of CRM and your email marketing sort of automation and your email kind of system set up correctly, and you have people filtering in based on these behavior traits and purchasing behaviors, then you essentially can kind of have these automations set up that it goes, oh, this person recently bought this. There's a chance they're probably going to be interested in this. It sends out an email with the product or the reasons that they like it and a direct link to buy it on the website. Yeah. Maybe there's a discount in there because it's identified that 20% of the time people open that particular person opens an email when it's got this, but 50% of the time they open an email when it's got this in the headline. So then you can kind of, again, split test a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. And social media scheduling too. That's another quick example that we had. How does that work?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. The most simple way is through a platform like Later, where you might spend 3 hours or 4 hours at the start of the month creating your content calendar, writing your copy, getting all of your creatives together or getting all your videos sorted, and then you just kind of upload it and then it sends it all out on the certain dates for you.
Easy. So you don't have to manually upload it.
Yeah, and when I talk to business owners, that's kind of one of the core things of like, I know I need to be posting more frequently. I don't know what to post. I haven't posted something in 3 weeks because every time I sit down to do it, I get overwhelmed. What do I post? That blank page anxiety. You don't have to worry about it. And then you only essentially have to content plan and do your social media marketing once a month.
You'd knock that out in a day, would you say? Or not even a day?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the type of content that you're putting out there, how much video editing you have to do, if you're doing video editing at all, and the quality of the content that's being provided. But yeah, anywhere between like 1 or 2 days, you could kind of smash something out.
You don't have to worry about it. Sit there and post and worry about captions every second day.
Yeah.
For sure. And again, easy to implement. Mm-hmm. Is that software expensive?
Later? No, I can't remember. It might be less than $20 a month. Might be $10 a month or something. You pay, there is a free plan. I don't think it's got that many features. But then you can pay based on seats.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Pricing not displayed on the website.
Interesting.
Scary things.
There you go.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. What about finance, accounting? Obviously, we've kind of spoken about it a little bit, but is there anything else in terms of like invoicing or billing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for billing is setting up your automated reminders, because in Australia, we're notoriously terrible for paying people on time. Actually, one of the worst countries in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy because it really grinds my gears when people don't pay people. Anyway, that's a different story for a different time. But what you can do is you can set up automations where after the bill is due, it'll send out an automated reminder, and then another 7 days, another one, and then another 7 days, another one. And then from there, you can prompt a phone call, send it to debt collectors. It just depends. But I think that's a really easy one to set up. You can set it up in Xero. I'm 99% sure all of the software, accounting software, whether it's MyOb, QuickBooks or Xero, you can do it. Another big one is automating your accounts payable. So let's say you send me a bill for my social media marketing and it's due in 14 days. Mm-hmm. I can say, hey, Zara, can you just send all future bills to this email address, and it'll automatically come up in Xero. Xero will pull all the data from your invoice, so that way it comes up in my Xero account and I know when it needs to be paid.
Wow.
So I don't have to.
And then does Xero automatically pay it?
It doesn't.
Okay.
It can. But there's a few manual steps to it. So just on this example, so let's say you send me the invoice, I don't have to manually enter information anymore.
Yeah.
It's all done. Whereas traditionally you would have to get that invoice, type everything out into the software. And it's the same with the bank feeds as well in Xero. That helps where you don't have to manually enter the data. It's already there. It pulls it straight from the bank. There's heaps of stuff.
Would you say Xero is the most common like accounting invoicing software that people use? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because features or it's known or?
I think, I would say features. Okay. I mean, look, they all do this essentially the same thing. I just find that Xero is more user-friendly.
Okay.
Majority of our clients are on Xero. I think they have a really big market share here in Australia.
Yep.
That's just continually getting bigger, even though they aren't sponsoring us. We always talk about them.
We do talk about them.
I think the software is great.
Free plug.
Yeah, they always get a free plug.
Yeah. Yeah. What about sales?
It really does tie into that email and lead nurturing stuff that you spoke about initially, where you can automate the follow-ups, you can have pipeline tracking. Yeah, it's very similar to the lead nurturing that we already spoke about. Have you done the lead scoring stuff before? I know Owen does it.
Yeah, he does. And we have it set up for Inflection.
Yep.
We don't utilize it effectively yet.
What's the 2-minute summary on what that is?
So essentially based on the engagement interaction that people have with the website, they fall into different buckets. So bucket 1 is least engaged. Maybe they've only visited the website once. Bucket 4 is highly engaged, a hot lead. If I'm going to spend my time calling anybody to have a conversation, a business conversation, it's going to be anyone from bucket 4 because I know that the chance of conversion rate is going to be much higher than bucket 1.
Yep.
And so it just depends what they do with your website or your business and where they kind of filter in.
Yeah, okay, cool. Is it easy to set up?
Yeah, somewhat, yes.
Okay, cool. Cool. We don't actually use that, but I know Owen's a big fan of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, they use it for a lot of their customer engagement.
What about operations and workflow automation?
Yeah, so that's where we primarily use Monday.
Yep.
And so obviously I've talked about it through the kind of like lead and sales pipeline, but we also use it for like team task management. So depending on what service someone comes on board for, say, for example, we're working with someone for Google Ads management. There's certain things that need to be done every week. There's certain things that need to be done every fortnight and every month. And so when that client falls through, we set up automated tasks, like recurring tasks, allocates a particular person to it. It is allocated to the client or to the account. And then once someone kind of works on it, and we also do a priority and then a due date. And so if I was logging into my task management board, I would be able to see, cool, these are the high priority tasks that I need to work on today. This is when they're due. These are the medium priority and, the low priority tasks. Yep. And so you can help kind of manage the workflow. But then it also kind of means you don't miss anything. So for example, every month on X date, we create our reports for clients. Every month on X date, the reports are sent to clients. Every month on X date, we've booked a reporting whip with our clients.
Yep.
So it just means that consistency in service delivery is there. So clients always know that they're going to get their report. They always know they're going to have a phone call from us within the first 10 days of the month. But then if there's like a health checking component for Google Ads, for example, we jump in, we need to review what the account's doing, what the spend's doing, what our click-through rate looks like. We can kind of do all of that. And you don't have to, I guess, every day be like, oh, what do I have to do? What clients do I have to work on? It's in the system.
Yeah, cool. And the good thing about Monday is it does a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like internally in its own software. But if you do use a different software, you can use Zapier or Make to help with this stuff and these automations. Like if it doesn't have that automated reminder function, you can set that stuff up and it's it can be relatively straightforward.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I talk about Monday a lot because it's obviously what we use,
yes.
but there's a lot of people do. There's a lot of other ones out there like Asana and Trello that operate very similarly.
Yep.
It's just Monday is top of mind.
Yeah. And a lot of people do use it across all different businesses.
Yeah. And I think the reason why is again, going back to potentially the reason that Xero exists and why people use Xero is super user-friendly, color coordinated, it's pretty to look at, it's easy to use, it's an enjoyable platform to spend time on. And they've got template boards. So essentially if you've never used it before and you say, okay, I want to use it for task management or I want to use it for sales pipeline or whatever it might be, whatever your kind of purpose is, you can choose a template dashboard that exists and it populates it for you. All you need to do is change the information that's in there. So you input your client name and you assign it to a particular person and set your due date, but you don't have to actually set up the board itself.
Yeah, because if you're staring at the blank board, that in itself can be a whole exercise and like, where do you even start? But they do have heaps of resources online about, not, would you call it resources? They're just templates. There you go, template center. That's what they call it on their website.
Yeah. I think you've kind of touched on it too, like don't overcomplicate things. So like when you are looking at getting started with implementing automations in the business, you've kind of done it quite a few times. What are some tips that you would have for people?
Try and start on the task that's going to save you the most amount of time and just try and keep it simple at the start and then build into it, because it's its own skill set, setting this stuff up and working out how it all works. There's heaps of content online on how to do it. Heaps of I think YouTube's the best because you can literally follow people as they're doing it and you can do it on your screen too, especially where you need to use software like Make or Zapier. Super important that you do a bit of research first, because these things do break and you want to make sure that you understand what's going on, because yes, you do get an email pinning you saying, hey, this hasn't worked. This automation sequence hasn't worked, but you want to understand what's going on.
Would you say that you can ever over automate? Is that a thing?
I don't think so. I mean, if it makes sense, I wouldn't do it just for the sake of it, but like I said before, if it's a task that isn't necessary, don't spend a week trying to work out how can I streamline this super quickly. Something that we didn't touch on that I'm curious about if you've used before is the whole ticketing system and AI chatbots.
Not in my own business. I've worked with clients that do though.
How does that work?
So there's a few different kind of chatbots out there. One that's really common in e-commerce is Gorgias. I think that's how you pronounce it. Gorgias. And there's other ones that I've helped to build out. I just can't remember off the top of my head. I did it for someone about 12 months ago, another e-com kind of fashion brand. And the reason being is if you work in e-com, you would know that there can be quite a lot of returns. And if you don't have an automated system that can help you do those returns, or a system that can automate the return for the customer, it can send them a label. So Iconic, ASOS, they're all great examples of businesses that do it. You log into the back end of the portal, you can say, I want to return an item, you initiate the return, it automatically sends you a return label. So that's the benefit of it, of certain chatbots, of the Gorgias and those kinds of things. There's a whole bunch out there and there's so much variety in terms of what you could do. But that is an example of what I have seen business owners in the e-com space implement, and it saved a whole chunk of time.
And you can also use that if you're a service-based business too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can set up rules. So one of the things this customer that we did it for about 12 months ago is we say, okay, well, things that are on sale can only be returned for an exchange. Things that are this price can only be returned for this. If they're full price, it has to be returned. The return has to be initiated with this amount of time. So you can kind of set up these rules that essentially allow or block that process or that thing to take place. So essentially the business owner just gets notified that, John Doe returned an item. This is what it is. This is what's coming in. It can do it in the back end of your inventory system as well. So once that product arrives, you mark that it's arrived and it rebalances your inventory.
Okay. Wow, that would save you heaps of time.
Loads of time.
Especially that ticketing system, super interesting. And in the service-based business, you would have that, like, would it ask a question? Would a potential customer be on the website or pop up say, hey, any questions?
Well, yeah, then you've also got like that chatbot functionality where it essentially acts as a customer service agent, where instead of having to jump on the phone to somebody and ask a whole bunch of questions of how something works, or if they can do something or they can get a quote or whatever it might be, that could be something you could build out in this chatbot to provide a rough free quote. Again, because if you're in the service space, a lot of the stuff that you'll be getting is quotes. Can I get a quote for this? Can I get a quote for that? The conversion rate of that quote, if you don't actually have to manually be providing that quote, you just have all of these rules set up in the back end of the system that it can send that out to. And obviously you just have a component attached to it that says, this is a proposal or it's a quote. It's not a locked in price. There may be a variance of X% depending on scale or scope of work.
Yeah, cool. I've seen where those chat bots or chat tools, they'll start the conversation, but it also gets pinned to your mobile.
Yeah.
And you can pick it up yourself if it becomes a bit more of a technical chat. So that's super cool as well, because people want responses straight away in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just a lot of opportunity that, again, going back to the whole reason that we kind of started this conversation is to save time. and improve efficiencies and effectiveness of your business and what you're working on.
Yep, for sure. And I know we spoke about some examples that we've used in our business before, but just to repeat, I spoke about how we've used it for the onboarding process. And I think a lot of businesses can do that as well. If you're unsure, you know what? If you're unsure, it's probably best to jump on that Techspert session we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point.
And pick our brains, and we can maybe get really specific on your business in how you can implement it. When are we doing that session?
20th of March.
And how do people join?
So good question. Nice little plug. So if you are interested, we are doing a free Techspert session. So it's essentially a Q&A session where Jordan, myself, Daniel and Owen are going to be available to you for an hour on the 20th of March. We haven't locked in the exact time yet. We're just trying to figure out, based on you guys, what you want, what time you want to meet during work hours or after work hours. But to join, we'll put a link in the show notes. All you need to do is join our free community. And all of the information of, links to join, what to do, what we'll talk about, will all be in there.
Yep, for sure. If you did want to get started with automations, I think it's best to just focus on those really repetitive tasks that you're doing every day. Pick one tool, whether it's free, whether it's paid, pick one, because you can get overawed with like the Zapier, there's Make, there's new ones coming out every second day. Just pick one of them and try and spend some time to teach yourself on one of those tools. Just to keep it simple, because it can become the Wild West depending on how crazy these automations go.
Yeah, and even if you start with a free tool, so you're not financially locked in or committed to something, you can just sort of play around with it. Because in my opinion, once you've kind of played around with one, you have a rough idea of how they work and how to use them. And then if you like what it's doing and you like, the time that you're saving, then maybe it makes sense to upgrade.
Would you say they essentially do the same thing? It's just formatted differently, or are they actually different, like Zapier and Make?
I mean, I would say that they do the same thing. It just depends kind of how you visually prefer to represent your work.
Make's nicer on the eyes.
Yeah, it's just a bit prettier.
Yeah. Do you use Make or Zapier?
We use Make. We have used both. We had two running at the same time doing different things, which we didn't need to. Yeah, nice. But now we just use Make. The team prefers it. It's easy to use. If you've never used it before, we've got people in the team that have never used like an automation kind of software before, and they can work it out. Yeah, cool. So yeah. So Make is kind of my recommendation. Yeah, well, maybe that's a really good starting point. So if you haven't dived into this stuff yet, make.com, make.com, and maybe you can start there and check it out and start to get all your software talking to each other. Yeah, and maybe just as kind of like a closing thought, if you just try to automate one process for now, like in the month of March, we're almost at the end of Feb, the month of March, just focus on one process. Yep. Pick one. Make that your goal. If you join the free community, send us a DM and let us know what you've chosen and how much time it saved you over the next kind of 28 days. That'll be really interesting. Obviously, again, anything that we're learning from you guys, we can share with the rest of the community and the rest of everyone that's listening to the podcast, and we all benefit one another. For sure. And if you are going to do that, it's probably best to drop your tech stack as well. And what I mean by tech stack is like all of the software that you're using, put it in the community, and then we can maybe do a brainstorming session. Well, everyone in there can do it. There's 200 people in there, so I'm sure someone's done it before. Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff. Great. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Zara.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.